friends, so in this week's video, we are going to talk about a phrase that, depending on the tone, can either feel like a positive affirmation or a backhanded compliment, and that is, you've changed. Now, sometimes, sure, that phrase comes from someone who is genuinely proud of you for making good changes in your life. But let's be honest, most of the time people say this, it is intended to be a negative, a sort of emotional warning shot. What they are not saying out loud, though, is that they can see a shift in the power dynamic between you and they don't like it. So let's talk about all of that. First, some real talk. People who are manipulators do not like it when you push back or stop letting them manipulate you. They don't like it when you try to make a change that might be great for you, but is inconvenient for them. That loss of control stings. The funny part is that people who are very controlling and manipulative often present themselves as these laid-back, easygoing people. This is obviously the opposite of what they really are, but in saying this, their hope is to sort of throw you off the trail, so to speak. The truth is that manipulators have a very difficult time controlling themselves, period, but especially when their control begins to be challenged. That is the key to the whole phenomenon of controlling behavior, by the way. The more of a control freak someone is, the bigger the sign is that they are actually not in control of anything, including themselves. So it goes without saying that when these people say, you've changed, it is most often code for, you've stopped letting me control you. That phrase gets thrown out when you stop being their yes man or woman, when you stop tolerating disrespect, when you start asking for reciprocity, when you start calling them out on their bad behavior, and definitely when you stop responding to their manipulative tactics. When you do these things, suddenly your emotional growth feels like an emotional betrayal to them. They were benefiting from your lack of boundaries, and now that that has been taken away, so to speak, you have stopped being who they needed you to be for their own comfort. So instead of using this as a moment to self-examine and think, maybe I need to figure out what within me makes me behave this way, they instead see it as you outgrowing the role that they cast you in, where they control the marionette strings. Because, as you may know, in many relationships, friendships, family dynamics, and even romantic ones, we are unconsciously assigned roles. You are the helper, the fixer, the one who always understands, the one who always answers, the one who never makes it about you and sets your own needs aside for their benefit, the one who stays quiet for the greater good, the one who always forgives, the one who always takes them back, the one who will tolerate whatever they dish out without making them face any consequences. But then something happens. You start realizing that the unhealed parts of you is what was causing you to be this way. That your tolerance of their BS is rooted in your own lack of confidence, in your poor self-esteem, in your loosey-goosey boundaries. So you work on yourself, you grow, and you heal. And ultimately, you stop playing that role. And the people who were benefiting from you being stuck in that role, of course, they don't like it. So when they say you've changed, it's really not that you've changed, it's that there has been a curtain call. You have given your last performance, and now you're quitting this production. And they are just mad that the show is over. Now, here's something that we have to mention because it's important. Some relationships do not start for good reasons. Therefore, it is almost inevitable that they descend into manipulation territory. They aren't built on love or common ground or a bond that naturally forms and is healthy. In other words, it isn't that you just meet someone, you instantly click, and here you are years later in a fiercely loyal friendship or a wonderful, thriving romantic relationship. It's that you make a connection that is built on some kind of trauma bond or some flimsy, superficial kind of thing, on a familiarity maybe of the bad variety. And some relationships, sadly, they are built on the perception of one person that they can easily control the other. I'm talking about relationships where one person has narcissistic tendencies or is very, very covertly insecure. So, when they choose their friendships and their romantic partnerships, they choose somebody that they perceive as low-hanging fruit, for lack of a better term. They will want to be with or around someone, or several someones, who they see as less than them. That way, they can, by default, be the smartest, best-looking, most successful person in that room at all times. That is not really a good superlative to strive for. Not for adults, anyway. I mean, it carries the same weight as someone being almost 50 years old and still hanging on to how they were voted best hair in high school. But to people who are really, really insecure, those things do actually matter. They want to cling to any win they can get. And while I think we can all understand that, wins that you get from stepping on somebody else's neck are very hollow victories. And most people who aren't under the manipulator's spell can see that very clearly. When you break out of that spell too, where you see someone for who they actually are and not who they pretended to be or even who you wish they were, then that's one less adoring fan for the manipulator. The more of a manipulator the person is, the more they are going to notice. This usually leads them to saying things like, "Wow, you don't call me all the time like you used to," or sometimes it will even be something dramatic like, "You don't love me anymore," because they are trying to get a rise out of you. They're trying to get some validation, even if it is by force. Sometimes they will give you the silent treatment, which they might tell you they are doing by saying something like, "I just needed space." Or they might not tell you by just quietly disconnecting from you. Or they will play other emotional games, such as constantly one-upping you or minimizing your feelings and your pain when you tell them something that has hurt you or that they hurt you. Or, my personal favorite, changing the subject when you start talking about your needs or something that you might be struggling with. That last one, I can't think of anything that so loudly says, "I am a complete and utter douchebag," than telling someone that you are having a hard time with something or that you have an unmet need either from them or elsewhere, and you are just telling them something that's vulnerable, that really requires a response, but when you're done talking, all they give you is crickets. Not a word about what you just said. They simply pause and go right back to talking about something else, usually themselves. As if you annoyed them for daring to interrupt their me session. People who do this are just a-holes in the first degree, truly. And that's probably the nicest thing I can say without getting this video flagged by YouTube. It's one thing to have main character syndrome, which we will be talking about either on the podcast or in another video soon. But this is a whole other level of tone deaf and disrespectful. It is straight up contempt. And contempt is one of the most dangerous emotions that can exist in any relationship. Anyway, listen, all of this, telling you this passive-aggressive stuff and playing emotional games, it's not just their way of loving you or being your friend. It is not caring for you. It is managing you. As in, they are the boss and you are the worker bee. Those times that they were giving you the silent treatment, that's their way of punishing you for saying no to them. That dismissal of your feelings or constant one-upping, that's their way of telling you, hey, I'm over here and you are down here, so your silly little feelings don't matter, without actually using those words. That is why anytime you stop responding to them in the way that they want or expect, the whole thing comes crashing down. The system just breaks. And you know what the funniest thing about all of this is, maybe even a little ironic too, telling you that you've changed is most definitely not the biting insult that they think it is. So what is it instead? It's growth. I'll explain. Growth means you are moving up and away from their manipulation. Sometimes it can start really small, like a ripple, and then other times it's a radically different response than you would normally give them. Either way, it's a positive thing, no matter how they try to make you think that it isn't. I'm talking about things like this. You pause before replying to a message that they have sent you, which is basically just a big guilt trip. You skip over giving them an explanation, which might be your normal response, and just simply say no. Which, just as a reminder, no is a complete sentence. So you can just put a period on there and end it. Just saying. You no longer tolerate inconsistency or half effort and either call them out on it or create some distance between you. You stop over apologizing just to smooth things over with them. Some people are immediately going to hate that. Not because it's wrong, it's not, but because it takes away their leverage and it creates fear in them. You being hard to manipulate is terrifying to someone who has relied on being able to do it. The harder that you are to manipulate, the more fear in them it will fester. If they were to speak in completely honest terms that carried no consequences, their thoughts might sound something like this. Well, crap, that's the end of the line on this particular gravy train, so now what the hell am I going to do? But obviously, we can't say things like that out loud to people. I mean, you can, but they are probably never going to speak to you again. So instead, they find a softer angle. It's sort of like when you send somebody a text that sounds harsh, and before you hit that send button, you read it over, and you're like, ooh, and you just add a little smiley face at the end. That softer angle usually includes those guilt trips and whatever other nonsense tactics they can think of to try to get you back under their control. And listen, if you have never listened to or implemented a single piece of advice that I have given on this channel, which will be celebrating its 3rd birthday in just a couple of weeks, I will very politely ask that you please make this the one thing that you do listen to, that you really, really give some thought to. Once you have snatched your power back from somebody who is a manipulator, do not ever let them have it again. Not a single drop. I am saying this because this is a mistake that people make a lot, and I have actually personally made it myself, so I can honestly tell you, it is so much harder to get away from the 2nd, 3rd, or the 19th time, or whatever it is, than that first time. Because now you have showed that person that you are not monolithic. You can be convinced to compromise your self-respect. That is never a position you want to be in with anyone for any reason, but especially not with somebody who is very, very good at manipulating others. If you left them, stay gone. If you cut them off, leave that tie severed, because they will see any opening that you give them and put everything that they have into roping you back in until they get what they want. And what they want is to get you back underneath their thumb. So please don't do this to yourself. Seriously, just don't. Okay? Anyway, moving on. Another thing that we absolutely have to say about growth also. When you grow, you don't just change how you behave. You change how you identify also. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has to earn love by being agreeable all the time, by just giving in. You stop bending to make other people comfortable. You stop chasing approval from people who really never saw you clearly anyway. And this identity shift, this internal revolution, scares the people who depended on you staying the same, on being just your past self. But let me be clear, you do not owe stagnation to anyone because they were comfortable with you being less than what you want to be. You are not the same person that you were 5 years ago. You're not even the person that you were, say, 6 months ago. That's not just okay, it is necessary. You also do not need to defend your healing or what you did to make it happen or why and how you chose to grow. None of it. And look, when someone gives you that line of "you've changed," you might be tempted to respond with, "Well, I had to. It's because I went through this, and this. Or I just can't handle things the way I used to." But listen, you do not owe even those explanations to anyone. You don't owe anything at all. This is especially true when it comes to people who have treated you badly or hurt you or who disrespected you. When somebody hurts you, they don't get to choose how you heal. Just saying. The version of you who stopped tolerating crumbs doesn't need to defend themselves to the people who were fine keeping you hungry. Standing up for yourself and putting yourself as your priority is not rude or arrogant or selfish. It is honest and self-aware and necessary. And if someone can't celebrate your growth or changes that you make to your own life in order to make it better, well, I'm sorry to say, but they were never firmly in your corner to begin with. Remember back in school when your parents needed to sign a permission slip for you to go on a field trip or do some other activity or whatever? Well, we're going to end this video with that. A permission slip, not a field trip. I'm not going to sign it. I'm not your boss. You are your boss. But I'm going to help you write it. And here it goes. I, put your name here, give myself permission to do the following. I am allowed to evolve. I am allowed to heal. I am allowed to become unrecognizable to people who only liked the unhealed, broken version of me. I have outgrown manipulation. I am walking away from emotional games or mental gymnastics just to keep a connection to somebody else alive. I am no longer showing up for people who do not show up for me. I am no longer staying silent in order to keep the peace, especially when that peace only ever benefits somebody else. I am no longer tolerating disrespect from others. I am no longer available to anything or anyone who makes me feel bad about myself. If you want me to create a printable version for this, I will 100% do that for you free of charge. Just leave a comment on this video and I will put it in the community tab of the channel for you to print and sign. Put it on your mirror or your car visor or your desk or wherever you're going to see it. Hell, print it and put it in your wallet. Whatever will help you use it as a reminder that you are nobody's puppet. You are better than that. And the next time one of those manipulators tells you, "You've changed," here's what you say. "Yes, I have. And I am very proud of that. Thank you." That's all. Because you've changed probably means you're no longer easy to control for them. You don't respond to their guilt trips. You don't beg for scraps of their attention. And you don't betray yourself anymore to keep them comfortable. That isn't just change. That is a powerful transformation that you should definitely be proud of, and that your future self will most absolutely thank you for. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.